Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm incredibly excited to be joined today by Cameron Gawley. He is one of the leading marketing minds in the D2C space, especially as it relates to subscriptions. Cam, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be talking a ton about the subscription space in general, about acquisition. Cam may look like he's only 30 years old, but he's actually been in the D2C space for years and years. He's an OG. Cam, I would love for you to tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you got into digital marketing, because it's a cool story.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. So kind of an OG in the world. I'm actually a pre.com tech kid. There's a lot more grays here. This is a lot of just for men. Just for men's happening here. But yeah, I'm a pre.comer in the tech space. So I kind of cut my teeth in tech. I was running an online data backup company pre-Dropbox and Box.net. For a lot of years. And then in 2007, I go down to South by Southwest Interactive, and I'm at the back of the Driscoll Hotel there where all the tech kids kind of meet up and everything. And there's this guy, Ev Williams, back there, and Ev ends up being the co-founder of Twitter. And 2007 March was like my aha moment. Like literally I saw Twitter go from 10,000 to 150,000 tweets in like one day. And I was like, holy crap, the way we fundamentally communicate as entrepreneurs, technologists, consumers, everything's going to change like overnight. Like Twitter was like truly my aha moment. So in 2007, I saw that happening and I was like, okay, like there might be a big opportunity, because a bunch of my clients at the time, we were backing up creative files at all these traditional ad agencies, right? And all these ad agencies, they didn't know the world of social and digital and everything. They were still selling circulars and, TV spots and radio and everything else. And so in 2010, we had a little thing here in Dallas, Texas called Social Media Club of Dallas, which I was one of the founders of. And it just brought together like people trying to figure out like, what's this social media doing and how can I help grow my business and everything else. And at one of the first events, I met this guy named Eddie Badrina, and Eddie, he worked at the White House for both Bush 41 and 43. Is very strategic, pragmatic. And I was like, hey, like, I like we were like yin and yang. I was this creative tech kid. He's this, this guy. And I was like, what if we built something together? So we came together and literally built one of the first digital strategy agencies on the internet called BuzzShift in 2010. And we basically took a lot of the playbooks from BCG, McKinsey, Deloitte, where they were doing go-to-market strategy for all these big brands. We're like, what if we took some of that and applied that to emerging brands, like build go-to-market strategies, and then with strategy comes execution. So we kind of, from 2010 all the way to 2016, built one of the fastest growing agencies in Texas. We were fast growing, and we kind of stumbled upon the direct consumer world. We stubbed our toe with a couple different brands. We tried it, acquisition, like all the stuff. And then 2016 hit, and all of a sudden we just like skyrocketed. Like it was like Facebook arbitrage days, right? And Shopify we're moving a lot of brands from WooCommerce into Shopify. And it was a kind of the heyday of like $5 CPAs. Like you could just acquire customers for nothing, right? So we had some skincare brands. We had a skincare brand called Jack Blackman Skincare. And for them, they go and essentially they end up getting acquired by Edgewell. But we helped build a lot of these like early stage food and beverage, skincare, health and wellness kind of brands. Ultimately, we ended up getting acquired in 2016, bought back our agency for pennies on the dollar in 2017, and then sold again the agency in 2021 to private equity. So I had a double exit on the agency, but I learned a lot about agency life. And I was like, agencies, in my opinion, are fundamentally broken. I think that, the whole mindset around being kind of an all-in-one agency, and this a lot of people will have different opinions on this, but the all-in-one agency that does all things well and charges a big retainer and a percentage of media spend and all that stuff. I think the days are over on that. And so
Right.
I kind of saw the writing on the wall in 2021 when we sold, and I said, if I ever want to do something in the agency space again, I would do it completely different. So now I'm working on a new venture studio, so we can talk about that more. But
Yeah,
but
definitely.
ultimately, that's kind of my background in agency life for over a decade.
No, I love it, and that's something we're struggling with all the time, right? On our side, our consultancy, it's like we're constantly getting pulled into other areas. We could try to tackle other areas, but we're hyper focused on subscriptions for a reason,
Yes.
and it's and want to stay that way. So I totally feel that pain that you're talking about with the agency model. And so we met at some summit last year in Dallas. I think it was Brad's house, right?
Yeah.
Garden Cup is
Yeah.
one
The
of the
Garden
clients
Cup.
you're working with. And
Yep.
so I'd love to tell everybody a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about Garden Cup, what it
Yeah.
is, how you guys have been growing, and what you're doing for them too, because that's like right now some of the work that you're in the midst of.
Yeah, for sure. So they're one of our portfolio companies, and I'm their fractional CMO for Garden Cup. And so basically in 2021, Brad Savage came to me and is like, "Hey, I'm thinking about like shipping salads, like sweet green. Think sweet green salads, but for direct consumer, right? So like you're going to sweet green, but no, we're gonna ship these salads to 50 states." And I'm like, "That sounds like a terrible idea." Like I was like, "Who wants to
Operational
ship a
nightmare.
operational nightmare?" And I was like, "Oh, this sounds awful." Like I was like, "Wait, like you're gonna ship to Alaska like perishable salads?" I was like, "No way." I was like, and then he kind of like got me into it. And he's like, I think there's a way. There's this modified atmosphere packaging kind of play where you can keep the shelf life and all this stuff." And so he told me like how he was going to do it. And I was like, okay, this is either the worst idea or maybe the best idea ever.
Right.
After he kind of dove into it. So he hired me in 2021 to help like build the brand from scratch, like literally the tone, voice, look, feel, DNA, like everything around the brand. Our agency, we built from the ground up in 2021. And then he basically tinkered with it for 2 to 3 years to play with it, to figure out the moat around, I mean, shipping cold pack salads and everything else, right? He really dialed in the ops and built a moat around the ops side. And I think that, I'm always about go early, go ugly, like get it out there, like for most
Hmm.
products. But when you're talking about like food and perishable
Yeah, it's hard.
stuff,
It's hard to.
it's
Yeah.
you kind of have to figure that piece out before you can just like go to market, because if you go to market premature there, so I kind of took the opposite approach with him. I'm like, figure out the back end and the ops side, and then let's figure out the financial kind of unit economics piece, and then let's take it to market. So in the last 18 months, we've gone, literally 0 to $29 million run rate in no time. It's been an incredible ride the last 18 months. And I'll just say, like, and it's a fully bootstrap. I mean, Brad, this is a bootstrap company, nobody on the cap. Like it was amazing. Like it was, no outside capital, no VC, nothing. So where I saw, and we all saw, like, a couple of years of a lot of people taking on way too much VC dollars and just blowing through cash and not
Right.
being profitable. Brad was really focused on building a sustainable, profitable business, and I wanted to be a part of the ride. And so it's been really awesome. I mean, it's really taken off, and people love it.
No, I love that. And it's so interesting. Anybody listening, you might have picked up a couple things because, Cam's been talking about it being a portfolio company, but also about it being bootstrapped, which might feel like it's a little bit opposite, but that's actually the nature and the thesis of your venture studio, right? Do you mind
Yeah,
sharing
so
a little bit
so
more about
we're
that?
we're actually we're working on the first round. So yeah, they're we're going through our first round of funding on this now, because we've hit that inflection point where we're like, I think that's the thing. Profitability and cash flow are two different things, and
Right.
and at the end of the day, like we're at that inflection point where we want to really scale this thing and bring on the right capital and the right partners, and so now we're in a really good spot, and yeah, so we're building a venture studio, and they happen to be one of our brands in that mix. We've got a really cool cookie brand. We've got some other. We've got a THC mocktail brand. We've got some really cool brands in the mix overall. We're going after the home and garden space right now. We're kind of
Nice.
building out a really cool product there. So we've got a portfolio of some fun brands that are all kind of like founder-led, creator-led brands that, have a personality. They're not hiding behind the brand. And I think that that's really important as well.
And you guys are doing a lot more than just injecting capital, right? Like you're actually injecting
Yeah.
expertise, time, and like all those things.
Yeah, so we're kind of acting as a chief growth officer at the intersection of product and marketing. So we're looking at their product strategy, their roadmap, their packaging design, like their collaborations, all that on the product side. We're saying, hey, we should use this protein partner. We should collaborate with them, and so cross pollinating between other brands, I think, is a big part of that. On the marketing side, we're helping not only on the brand building side, like we just did a whole brand refresh for Garden Cup, but we're focused on acquisition and retention as well. And for me, I'm just bringing in my key SMEs, my subject matter experts, and these, core pieces of retention and acquisition. And I just think it's like, getting the right people in the room is everything. Building a team, the right team is everything. And it's got to be the right dynamic. So I think that too often you have like, you got to really, I think building a company, it starts with building people, and a lot of people
Yep.
think, no, I got to go build product and do all this. I'm like, yes, but if you give people high autonomy, high responsibility to build the way they need to build, then we're in a good spot. So I think
And
we've partnered with
communicate,
some
not
good
being
people.
siloed, right? Like that, like we see that
100%.
so many times where like the growth team is like 95% of the company, and
Yeah,
the retention lifecycle side is like starving
this
for
one
resources, doesn't have
all day,
input, and
all
yet
day.
they're the ones who are seeing like what's performing well and what's retaining well, right? So,
This
um,
is
yeah,
all an LTV game, and I think
right,
that everybody's got shiny object syndrome around ads and acquisition, and man, they are not focused enough around their retention strategy. Like every day, like retention's
yeah,
everything for me. So I'm like,
yeah,
I think it's almost a commodity to run media now. Like it's all about
yeah.
variable and creative, and it's like retention's a whole different beast that people are just kind of like, it's an afterthought for so many brands, which is unfortunate. It should
Yeah.
be baked in inherently.
Well, I had the funniest conversation like a week or two ago with a brand where, we were looking at inventory and potentially like discussions around the risk of running out of inventory, like a gap between when we might have product or not. And the question I brought up was, hey, we need to make sure we stop selling so that we know that we have enough inventory reserve for subscribers.
Yeah,
And they just looked at me like, what? I'm like, you're going to want to turn off your ads and not sell product to new people
yeah,
if it means you'll run out of product for subscribers that you've already paid to acquire. And I
yeah,
had to explain it a couple of times, which blew my mind. Like, why would you want to spend $100 to go get a new customer when you have a customer who can get $100 in margin by just
hundred
processing the
percent.
order?
And you're trying to empower those loyal customers to become
Right,
advocates, and the only way to
right,
be and empower them to become advocates is to make sure that you're fulfilling on them first. Like, I mean,
right.
that's it. I
Yeah,
see that too often. It's like, no, 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 we got to keep the feeding the beast over here on acquisition. I'm like, if you can't fulfill on your existing customers, don't just
right,
turn off acquisition.
right.
Like, forget that. Yeah, so I agree, 100%.
So I'd love to hear from you more, some of your thoughts on subscriptions, on
Yeah,
like what's been working or not, or issues with Garden Cup or some of the other brands you've worked with or seen. Anything you have to say or share, and we can
yeah.
definitely go deeper on all
So
kinds of things.
So I kind of take this like sample first, subscribe later mentality to subscription. Like I'm all about like low, like discoverability and getting people to like love on your product. I think people try to lean on subscription too quickly. I mean, with Garden Cup, I mean, it was a subscription first, all subscription all the time. There's no like one shot, no one time purchase options. And for the traditional like D2C world that we kind of work in a lot, that was a whole different mindset, right? It's like we're
Hmm.
100% subscription, kind of like a meal subscription play that happens to be on Shopify. That was a lot different than like, a skincare brand where we want them to trial and sample first and then subscribe later. One thing like on the skincare side, with Jack Blackman Skincare, we were trying to sell like a $50, at one point we were trying to sell like a $50, oh, it was $50 body wash, like turbo wash, right? It was like this big thing of, and it's like
Yeah,
to get a
I
dude to
remember that.
spend $50 on, on body wash, you're like, that's insane, right? So, but if you sold them on like a regimen set, like a travel, like like a dop bag set of just like small products, sample products, you get them hooked, and then they'll go buy the $50 bottle. So I think like for me, like I've always learned to like, sample first, subscribe later mindset. Like I think that there's like that's kind of like how I've always thought about um the play of like how do we get people to sample. The other thing is like I think there's a big opportunity to in adjacent or complementary D2C brands to drop I think there's a whole new market that we can talk about of dropping samples in inside other people's orders, so do exclusive trial offers for their customers. I think there's so many plays around that of like creating a
Yeah.
whole ad network inside boxes. Basically, there's a whole play there.
No, that's fascinating. I want to come back to that. I want to go a little deeper in what you said though on
Yeah,
the trial size stuff. So,
yeah.
do you view it as like how do you manage that then? Is it like, hey, we're just going to use email and SMS and maybe retargeting ads to get somebody that's purchased to buy again? Is it like, hey, you buy this and unless you cancel, you're opted into a subscription on the full size? Like how do you manage some of the both technical but also marketing side of getting somebody, because I agree, getting somebody to try something is often a lot easier than it is to get them to commit to a big purchase. How do you get them to bridge that bridge though?
Yeah, I think it's I think real retention comes down to it's all about belonging. So I think that like too many brands focus on transactional loyalty. Like that's the issue I see across the board. So I think that like in my opinion, it's more about like how do we kind of invite our customers into the why, why, and
Interesting.
so I think we're, if you're building a brand right now, we're kind of at the intersection of content, community, and commerce, right? And I think that a
Hmm.
lot of people focus on the commerce piece, and they're shoving out a lot of content, but the community piece they're really missing out on. And so I think that like no one cancels something that they feel a part of. And I think that
Right.
it's like, how do we establish this aura of a sense of belonging? And I think that that's the thing is that um, brands that are winning are very empathetic. They're very dialed in with this. There's this community content missional alignment, I think, that's happening, and that's where advocacy, like this, we talk about advocacy, like in the loyalty and retentions. That's where the identity kind of comes out of that. So I think that when we're talking about sampling, I think it's more about the narrative, the story, like how we're building in these rituals, like that people are
Right.
want to be a part of and everything. I think that's it's like, oh, and it's just it removes the friction of like I don't even think about it. Like Magic Mind, for instance, is a brand that I use. William Hicks's team and James, like their Magic Mind, like they built this amazing elixir that I'm like I don't even think about it, like it's just automatically comes to
Right.
me every like 2 weeks or whatever, and or maybe every month, I don't even know, actually it just comes all the time.
Right.
um
And you're
and
using it.
and
Yeah.
and I use it, and I don't even think about it because it's part of my ritual. And I think if you can, loyalty comes from like how do it's part of my morning ritual, and they made it a part of my morning ritual, right? And so
Right.
that's inherently what I'm trying to say is like, how do we displace something that's already a part of your ritual with this other product or something like that, or this other brand? Because people are, it's habitual, like it's all about habit forming. And so I think it's like, how do we inject
Mm.
that as part of your, in your
Yeah, that's
ritual?
I love that. So like on this show, we've talked a ton about like some of the tactical ways that you like
Yeah,
create ritual and like
yeah,
unboxing and some of this other stuff. But like your perspective on like that higher level of like I think whether it's that philosophy, that community, like that why, I think
yes,
is something that often is even missing, even when you're being very tactical about stuff. Like I just had this. I was testing a product from one of our clients last night. It was a drink, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, this whole thing is is marketed as a nightly ritual. Like this can be your
yes,
wind down evening
yes,
activity. And I'm like, I don't have that in my life. Like I don't have a wind down activity,
yeah,
but it made me think for a moment. I'm like, should I make this a thing? Like maybe I need a
Yeah.
wind down thing in my chaotic life or whatever. So I'll let you know if I drink it again tonight, because it might
Yeah.
start creating a ritual for me. But that's a really, really great way to kind of think about the high level mission of what a brand should be trying to do to get subscriptions, or
Yeah,
really like
and I
the
think
ritual
that's the
piece.
thing. Like when that's the whole bit. Like I think about like you said wind down at night. Like I take a like everybody's trying to sell a supplement brand right now. It feels like, but
Mm-hmm.
magnesium is something that I take at night, like every day. Like I put a scoop of it in my water every night. Whatever I drink magnesium or whatever, right? So like and I forget whatever or the brand is, but it's Thorn, I think, is who it is. But anyways, I don't even think about it, but instead of them selling me on just magnesium and what it does for my body, it's like, no, this is part of your nightly routine or your daily
Mm-hmm.
routine. If you position it differently, it's all about positioning. And I think that's the thing is like, um, you know, like again, people don't buy products; they buy into like brands, and products are really commoditized. And so I think that it's like if you can create that narrative and that positioning with your brand, that's how you win. Like you're never going to win on product. You're always going to win on your brand, because and it's about people believing in something, and that's really important.
No, I love that. Okay, so you're talking about this idea of like seeding other products and stuff as a way of trying to grow,
Yeah.
and I have to tell you, like, really really funny. But I was at ChargeX recently with Brad from Garden
Yep.
Cup, and
Yep.
I introduced him to a friend of mine at another company, and one of the first things Brad says, like, "Oh, I would love to put product samples of your product into our boxes,
That's right.
and you can't maybe fit a salad into yours, but you could do a gift card. We could do a swap and stuff." It was like
All
and
day.
I was just like, because they were perfectly aligned. There was like two health brands, right? A garden brand and a supplement.
Yes.
They're a fruit and vegetable like supplement brand, and I
Yeah.
just watched that magic happen of them talking. So yeah, unpack that a little bit more. Where's that opportunity coming from? Because I agree. I think it's pretty genius. I also want to just add that it's a brilliant like retention play when people are getting a little extra surprise and delight because there's other products in their shipment every month. Because
All day.
sometimes you'll strike gold. Worst cases, they just go whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the thing. I mean, we're doing that. I mentioned Magic Mind, like at Garden Cup. We have our own juice shots or whatever. And so we talked to the team at Magic Mind. We're like, hey, our perceived value, if we could take something that people love over here, and we have a community over here with Magic Mind, and then we have a community over here with Garden Cup, and we can cross pollinate the two in some unique way, then all of a sudden it's like they're almost adjacent to each other, non-competitive. And we're like, let's do this as a
Mm-hmm.
sampling play. And it caught fire like really quickly. And our community now all of a sudden was, it lowered their customer acquisition costs. And the same thing is that, they would put in a gift card of us or whatever else to subscribe or whatever else. So it's like, I think there's a power of, I call it OPN, other people's network. And how do we leverage other people's network to like, there's a perceived value. It's like we care. And it's like, I call it the homie kind of network. It's like, who are your homies? Because I think that a lot of times these brands, they sit on their lonely island and they're doing their own thing, whatever
Mm-hmm.
else. And the rising tides raise all ships mentality is a real thing if you just cross pollinate with other brands and say, hey, how can we work together? We're non-competitive, we're adjacent, like we have the same kind of overlap. Maybe it's in the fitness and protein space or whatever, or it's the remote workers, or it's the stay-at-home moms, or whatever it is. And it's like, this makes sense, like let's just do something together. And I think the more you can figure out doing something together, the better. It just lowers acquisition costs significantly. So
Right.
it's that, but it also helps with retention because it's like this surprise and delight. So it's a both
Right.
and, right? So
Right.
so I think it's a double whammy on retention and acquisition, is like the surprise and delight of having something net new that they weren't expecting is really, really interesting. And it makes you, it's like, oh man, Garden Cup sent me Magic Mind this week. That was really
That
interesting, or
is,
whatever,
yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for more brands to do more cross pollination.
And it just makes me think of like what you're just saying a few minutes ago about ritual, right? The idea is like, hey, you already have a ritual with us. Like we want to introduce you to stuff that could enhance that ritual in some way, shape, or
Yes,
form, right? Like,
yes,
yeah, which is a brilliant idea. Again, we're trying to like help our end consumers, give them other products or other things that might make their lives better. We're also
yeah,
able to give them that surprise and delight, perceived value in the subscription. I think Magic Mind does it better than anybody else. This idea of like what you get with the subscription. There's just so much stuff in
that's
addition to the
right.
quality of the product that it makes sense to introduce other products. But it's something that we talk about with clients all the time. Like the irony is even a client or even a subscription brand that has a wide SKU count, they don't sample or gift their other products to customers, let alone other brands that people might have perceived value for as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100%. No, I 100% agree. I think that also like I know we're talking about a little bit on acquisition. I actually think that, your retention strategy starts with acquisition, with good acquisition. And so it's like most churn is caused by bad acquisition. Like you're going after the wrong people and everything else. So I can tell you like the our issue a lot of times is like we're not going after the right people. And so I think
Right.
that like what I've seen is that like with Garden Cup, we've tested this out where it's like, okay, cool, that we brought in this new cohort of new people, and they all we acquired them. It was super cheap to acquire these net new customers, but they guess what? They all turned out, right? So it's
Right.
like the acquisition guys are like, oh, we crushed it, and then you're like, yeah, but like look at that cohort, and you're like, those people were churning out in the first like week. I mean, it's like so I think that
Yeah,
like
we have incredible
this
CAC,
is the
but we have
silo
horrible
issue.
LTV. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I'm clapping over here because that's our fundamental thesis at Subscription Prescription is actually like it's acquisition that has the strongest impact on retention more than
100%.
anything you can do. So I love hearing you say that because I'm just
Yeah,
thinking sound clip, sound clip, sound clip. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
and also, but there's also like even think about like on the acquisition side of on onboarding, right? Like
mm-hmm,
how are you nailing your onboarding? Are you educating properly? Are you? So it's like
right,
because I think that too often people just get through the funnel, they push them through, and they get over the consideration hump, they buy, but they weren't educated enough, and then they get it, and then they didn't learn enough about it, and then they're out.
yeah,
So I think I mean, truth be told, I've gone through that with a couple brands where yeah, I tried it, but then I never bought it again, and it was really because I felt like I wasn't a part of something. Back to the belonging piece, but I was also like, I just I didn't know enough about the brand. It got me to trial it or whatever else, but like I wished I would have done a little bit better job of educating. So I think like those
yeah.
that welcome series is really important. Like those initial automation flows are so important to educate people so that when they first get their product, they know what they're to
They're
expect,
primed
right?
and ready to go, and then you're like
Yeah,
you're unboxing. Like I see so many times where the unboxing is like they're selling something else instead of
yeah,
like answering FAQs. I will say like one of the coolest things when you talk about ritual was a matcha company I bought from, and they had this big fold out on like a almost like a Japanese tea ceremony, right? Like this
yeah,
is how you build the perfect cup of matcha, and I was like,
yes,
it made me feel so like connected
100%.
to like I didn't buy it because of Japanese heritage. I bought it because
Yeah,
I wanted to try matcha, but it made me like drinking that, preparing that, feel connected to this bigger thing, and made me love
that's right.
matcha even more, which was kind of cool. So,
I,
Cam,
I,
as we're kind
I
of like, oh,
yeah, go
keep
ahead.
going, keep
No, no,
you
no.
go
That
ahead.
you're exactly no.
I was just
You're
going to
spot
ask you
on.
for any final thoughts or anything like that as we're kind of getting ready to wrap out. But so whatever
No,
you were going to say.
I think that you know, the one thing I will say is that most where you have agencies and internal marketing teams and everything else kind of building and helping grow these brands and everything. I think the big thing is coming together with ops and coming together with, so we work with a group called Weekly Accounting, John Z's group over there, and plug in with them and looking at your weekly kind of, I call it Monday morning metrics is what they call it actually. And of week over week of like, you're looking at your subscribers, you're looking at this, but looking at your retention rates, and your customers and your cohort and everything else, just from a weekly perspective, plugging in with the finance team, plugging in with the ops team, is so important to get a real good dial on your brand health as a whole. I think that we, as marketers, sometimes live in our bubble, a silo, and we're not interacting enough with those teams. And I would just encourage, people that are building brands, like, how much are you syncing with that team? Are you plugged in? Do you
Right.
have a SEAL Team 6 ops team kind of optimizing COGS all the time, and that experience in supply chain and everything else in the back end? But ultimately, on the retention side, yeah, I mean, I think it starts with a ritual. It starts with building habits. Stop selling products, start building habits. Like, that's the
Mhm.
mindset that we have to have as marketers. Is that's really what I think. It's not about just building. It's not about just pushing convenience. It's about building these rituals, and
Yeah,
and that's the most successful brands do that.
they really do. They really do.
Yeah.
Cam, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you've got people can get in touch with you at CameronGawley.com. We'll have that link in the show notes, but you also
Yeah.
have a brand building playbook that's available at playbook.camerongawley.com. Do you mind telling everybody a little bit about that playbook and what's in it?
Yeah, so just for early stage founders that are, maybe they're doing ten to $250,000 a month, or maybe they're just at idea phase. It's like, before you spend $1 on ads, like, I would just say, check out the playbook. I mean, it's basically like, a lot of key lessons that we've had in building a fundamental brand. It gives you kind of a ideal tech stack as well. Like, the average brand now has like 26 apps in
Yeah.
Shopify, like, connected, which is crazy. But it's like, if you go in with the right mindset when you're building an emerging brand, the issue is that 98%, there's like 4 million brands on Shopify, right? Is there what's the number?
Yeah.
Hold me on.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 3 and 4 million brands on Shopify. 98% of the brands on Shopify do less than $1 million a year. And a lot of times it's because they just run ads, try to get as many customers acquired as possible. But it's these foundational pieces that I think are so important. So we built this brand builder playbook just to help brands, like, do some foundational pieces first to make sure they get the house in order before they go to market. And that's really
Oh,
what it's
that's
all about.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great. So, highly recommend you go check that out. You can connect with Cam. Again, we'll have links to that in the show notes. But Cam, thanks again for coming on the show.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned till next week for another dose of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.